You want to flip? Oh, let me get the coin flip ready. This thing is the dopest thing in the world. This coin flip thing is fire.
You're good to go. All right. Well, whenever you want to start it up, I'm going to sit here. I'm a guest tonight, so the podcast is recording now. So whenever you want to start off with your fire ass introduction, we're good to go. Let's hit it, bro.
All right. What is going on, everybody? It's your boy PJ back at it again with another episode of the Stoop Life. I say the because we are the only ones doing it like this. And tonight we got a banger. This has been like one in the making. This is revenge for somebody, and this is like a closeout game to another person. So, in one corner, we got a guy who is representing a pioneer in this sport. We have BJ Penn being represented by the one, the only Craig. In the other corner, we got Mr. BKO himself. The ass kicker. The ass kicker. Let me put a little dot on that.
I'm trying. We got
Jose Aldo. Huh?
That's how I got to hold up that standard now. Thanks. Put some pressure on me.
Hey, you're what, 3-0 and right now you're 3-0 right now. Craig's 1-1 right now. So this is
records are meant to be broken. So I'm not doubting my man right here. Especially I want to give him a shout out right now because my man's coming off a flawless fucking victory. And the only reason I want to bring it up is because
say that again.
Flawless.
Say that again.
That was vicious. If you guys didn't listen to his last debate, it was actually a tennis debate about Nadal versus Roger Federer. I absolutely dominated it. And 4 months later, Rafael Nadal won another major title just to even add to his debate. So it's like I'm not even really a Nadal fan at all, but like
I know
a lot of the stats he gave.
Yeah.
It was real good. Like I liked it, and now he won again. So it's like it's hard to argue that he's not the GOAT. Honestly, like really is.
That's the one thing I want to say about Craig. Before the debate he had with Dave, he really made me into a believer. Then Nadal just fucking put the fucking check mark. Like, all right, he's the GOAT in my opinion. He's the fucking GOAT. Craig, hell of a win. Let's hope you still got that same energy. Well, let's get it on, boys. Which one of you guys want to call the coin flip?
Well, you know how it works, man. We're both kind of the host of the show, so our guest gets said, "Do you want to call it a coin flip, or you want me to call it?"
Is it heads or tails?
Yeah, heads or tails.
Take heads.
My man got heads.
All right. It is heads.
I'll go first.
It is heads. He got it anyway, brother. Floor is yours. Tell these people why. Show these people why. BJ Penn is the GOAT. Show these motherfuckers why.
All right. First off, when you're talking about BJ and Aldo, you got to give credit where credit's due. Both these men, two of the best fighters to ever step in the octagon. Both going into the Hall of Fame. Both incredible fighters of the sport. So when you talk about who had a better career between two people that are going into the Hall of Fame, by the way, BJ's already in the Hall of Fame. Aldo is not. So when you talk about these two, it's not so much records. It's more who made. To take a direct quote from BJ Penn, he said, "MMA is not a career; it's an opportunity." So when you have two fighters of this caliber, it's who made the better opportunity with their time, who took the bigger chances, and who made the most of the opportunity that they were given by the UFC. So when you look off at that, when BJ Penn first started off, he was a jiu-jitsu black belt, got his black belt in 4 years. Only like less than 10 people in the world have ever done that. He was the first non-Brazilian to win a world championship at the black belt level, which got him into the UFC. That's why the UFC wanted him. When he went into the UFC, Dana gave him that opportunity. Dana himself quoted himself saying, BJ Penn built that 155 division with that opportunity that he had. He went in there. He killed it. They created it was a 4-man tournament to determine who the winner of the 155 division would be. It came down. BJ, he was a co-champion. The last fight was a draw. After that fight, he had left the UFC. He said, I'm done with the UFC. The competition is not good enough. He left the UFC and he went to another organization to fight better names, to fight higher competition. He fought. Now, for those of you who don't know much about mixed martial arts, in the world of mixed martial arts, the most famous family, the most important name in martial arts is Gracie. And he fought two of them and beat both of them. He fought two Gracies and beat them both. And then he went up. He went up in weight and he fought a guy named Matt Hughes. Now, for those of you who don't know, Matt Hughes ended up being like, his final record ended up being like 80-15 or something. And he had demolished everybody in his division at that point. Matt Hughes was just the man. He went through his entire division and just destroyed everybody. Like he was the top of the mountain for most people in the UFC. BJ Penn went in there, steamrolled him, just demolished him in the first round, I believe it was. Not only did BJ beat the highest names of the level of fighting at his weight class, he did it in 5 different weight classes. And he held belts in 2 different weight divisions in the UFC. He was the second person to ever do that. And if you want to get super technical about it, when he beat Matt Hughes for the welterweight title, he was still the co-champion of the 155 division, which would technically make him the first person to ever hold 2 belts at the same time. Aldo never did that. Aldo went through the 145 division, just recycled them, just kept going on and on, fought the same fighters. BJ, he wanted the best of the best. So he fought 5 divisions, the biggest names in the sport. And in fact, he was such a big star. He was so good that Dana White called him the first ever crossover star for pay-per-view, the biggest crossover star that the UFC ever had, coming from one sport of jiu-jitsu to the UFC. Then, when he left the UFC to go to a different organization, the UFC had to cancel the 155 division. They canceled it for 3 years. BJ was such a big star, they couldn't survive without him. When Aldo got knocked out in 14 seconds and left the 145 division and moved up, that division went on fine without him. They survived just fine without Aldo. 155 couldn't survive without BJ when he left. When he left, he also held another belt in another division, in another organization. I believe it was K1. I'm not sure. I don't have my paper with me. I left it at home. Bob sneak attacked me today and said, come over and get meatloaf. So I couldn't. I left in such a hurry. I didn't have my paper. But anyway, when it's all said and done, both of these men, I mean, Aldo has the better record. He has more wins than BJ Penn does. However, he did it all in the same division, where BJ Penn did it in multiple divisions. He actually fought in 5 divisions. You know how much pressure that puts on your body to fluctuate between fucking 145 all the way up to he went all the way up to heavyweight. He went all the way up to heavyweight and almost won. He almost beat Lyoto Machida in a heavyweight fight. Aldo just stayed in his little 145 bubble. He never left. He never left until he got beat. And I mean, there's not much more. Like, what else can I say? He did 5 divisions, beat the biggest names. He went on to fight the biggest names in the sport. Like, he beat 2 Gracies. He beat Matt Hughes. He defended the lightweight title 3 times. There's not much more I can say. He made way more advantageous moves and took way better opportunities than Jose Aldo did. In fact, Jose Aldo did not get into the UFC until BJ Penn showed Dana White that the lower divisions were profitable. So technically, without BJ Penn, there is no Jose Aldo. There is no 145 division. And that's what I got to say.
All right, Bob. What's your counterpoint?
Good work on that one. Good work. Especially coming in without your paperwork there. I give you credit, man.
Yeah, I got you.
Now, the thing is, guys, but the thing is, me and Craig have been arguing about BJ Penn being good or not for 10 years now. The only difference we're adding in is Jose Aldo. We never really argued about Jose Aldo because, like you said, they both have legendary careers. So like we lived through Aldo. Like our whole life is Aldo. So that's why we added them in here. But I want to say this: BJ Penn is a pioneer. There's a difference between a pioneer and a GOAT. But I want to make sure you guys understand this. We're not arguing which one of these guys is the GOAT. We're arguing which guy had a better career. So BJ Penn was a pioneer, right? He was the first guy to do 2 divisions and be a champion, but he never defended that welterweight belt. And if you talk to any real fighting fans, any real MMA fans, we will all agree that you are not a champion unless you defend that belt. That's just if you're in that game, that's out. Like that's my viewpoint on it. That's a lot of other people. I believe Steve said it in the podcast as well. He never defended that welterweight belt, right? He never defended it. He did beat Matt Hughes. It was a great win, but that was like one of his only legendary elite wins. You don't want to talk about records about BJ Penn because BJ Penn doesn't really have any records. My man is 16-14 in his career. Okay, 16-14. Aldo had a bigger winning streak than he has wins total. Think about that. That's crazy. Like, I get it. He only went in one division, but he ran through it. And he never fought the same guy twice until later in his career when he had to fight Max Holloway. You said that BJ Penn was the reason Jose Aldo's division is in here, right? How come it took BJ Penn 6 years? 6 years in the UFC he was in there to bring over Jose Aldo's division. Not only did they bring Jose Aldo in, Dana White and the UFC bought the entire company of WEC to bring over Jose Aldo. They didn't buy for anyone else. It was Jose Aldo. They brought Jose Aldo over. That wasn't because of BJ Penn. That was because Jose Aldo was headlining WEC events the same exact time as UFC was doing their pay-per-views. And who were they watching more? They were watching a WEC more. Remember that. That's what happened. But I mean, to get it started off with Jose Aldo, because BJ Penn, we're gonna get a lot into him in a little bit. But I want to give a little bit of reference on Jose Aldo here. Jose Aldo was the first champion in the UFC at the featherweight division at UFC 129, the first ever. BJ Penn wasn't the first ever lightweight champion. So he already went into a division that was already there and has still thrived. It's actually probably the best division in the UFC right now. I mean, you got Charles Oliveira, Islam, and yeah, he did have a lot to do with that. But he didn't have a lot. He didn't have a lot of success going forward in it for the longevity of his career. So when we talk about like longevity, like careers, Jose Aldo had a 25-fight win streak at featherweight. Overall, he had an 18-fight win streak overall. He won 8 title fights in the UFC. Do you know the longest win streak BJ Penn ever had? It was only in the UFC 3, and it was 4 total, compared to 25 in one division and 18 straight in his career. Okay. So 18 fights in a row. Like, no one has ever won 18 fights in a row in their career in that division, in any division. And Jose Aldo did it. And I want to say this real quick before I'm going to let you rebuttal here because we're going to do a lot here. What is the one thing BJ Penn has done inside of the octagon that he is known for? Because you said he was a black belt. Yeah, when he came into the UFC, how many times did he actually use that to beat his opponents with that technique? Is he known for a certain submission or like some technique? Like, what's he known for? Because Jose Aldo, before Jose Aldo was here, no one ever did a leg kick, a low leg kick. No one ever kicked you in the damn shin. No one kicked you in the quads. Jose Aldo brought the leg kicks into the UFC, which in UFC fights now, because Jose Aldo brought them in with his style of fighting, you got guys like Justin Gaethje who utilize that to knock the tree down. And it's a huge staple to what's going forward in UFC now. Like Anderson Silva before never threw low leg kicks. But then when he saw Jose Aldo coming in and doing them and beating the shit out of people's legs like he did Uriah Faber, A lot of fighters did that. So I just want to know, like, what did BJ Penn bring into the octagon besides being in the limelight at the right time when YouTube was getting famous and people were live streaming shit? And that's why BJ Penn got fans, because he started when it transitioned over to Facebook. So a lot of more mainstream was a lot easier. So what I'm saying is, like, what did he do in the ring besides bringing, social media influence?
He won 2 titles. So what do you mean?
He won. He was 16 and 14.
All right, hold on, wait, real quick. He did just mention Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva is on record quoted. Anderson Silva quoted as saying BJ Penn is the GOAT. Anderson Silva himself has quoted saying BJ Penn is the GOAT, noting Bob said, Bob said Jose was brought into the UFC, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jose was given the title. He never had to fight for that title. Dana gave him that title, and that 18-fight win streak.
So when he
that 18-fight win streak was all in the same division, right? BJ he built that 155 division, beat them so badly that he said, "You guys are not good enough." So he left. He left to fight the greatest fighters in the world, the biggest names that he could possibly fight. That's what he? You know what Jose did? Jose stayed there and just recycled through that 145 division. That's why he got 18 win streaks. He stayed there in the 145 division, just recycled through them fighters. BJ didn't want to do that. He wanted to fight the biggest names in the world, the biggest competition, so he left. He left the 145 division. He went on to fight 2 Gracies. He fought Matt. He went all the way up to heavyweight. So he might not have a better record than Jose Aldo does, but he went on to fight bigger names. Jose just fought the same division over and over again.
Okay, I get it, and that's fine. I get it. Like, you want a guy that is trying to be like a Conor McGregor, right? BJ Penn was the guy that was trying to be Conor before Conor, and he didn't do it successfully because he never defended the welterweight belt ever. And you said he got given the belt, right? Well, technically,
he did.
BJ Penn won the lightweight belt on a vacancy. He didn't beat a champion. He beat a vacant Joe Stevenson for that belt. No, so basically, you're coming into the UFC. You're saying he's handed to it, right? He's handed to him. Yet he bought the whole division. So they brought the division into the UFC. So they just utilized and changed the name on top of it.
Okay.
So yeah, he was the first champion of that division in the UFC, but he still won the belt in the division that they bought. Whereas, like I said, the lightweight belt from Joe Stevenson was vacant. He had a vacant fight. He didn't beat a champion. Joe Stevenson wasn't like a Charles Oliveira where he got stripped of the belt because he didn't make weight. He was not a champion. There was no champion in the division. So he won the belt. Okay,
but Aldo, you know what they did when the 145 division came? They just gave him the belt. But you know what they did with BJ? They had a 4-man tournament. They didn't do that with Aldo. They just gave it to him. They made BJ work for it. It wasn't vacant. It was a draw. He had to fight Uno. It was a draw. They were 2 co-champions. And then BJ said, I'm leaving. I'm going to fight bigger names. That's why there was a vacancy, because they shut the division down when BJ left.
So BJ Penn left on a contract dispute because he wanted more money.
He wanted bigger names. That's fine.
And
he wanted more money probably, but he wanted bigger names.
What happened when he left?
He went on and he
didn't he fight Lyoto Machida. He moved up, and what happened?
He lost at heavyweight.
Yeah,
he went up like 60 pounds. He went up like 60 pounds to fight Lyoto.
Let's bring in another guy that actually transitioned from like 6 different weights. Dan Henderson. Dan Henderson actually won at those divisions. Just because BJ Penn fought at those divisions, it's like,
you know what?
Like, he got fat and fought at heavyweight, and then he got skinny fat and fought at lightweight.
You know what? He won at every division. He won matches in every division except for heavyweight. You can't really blame him. You can't really blame him for losing to a heavyweight.
So that's what I'm trying to say in the beginning.
The divisions that he won in K1 or whatever it was, they were the biggest names in the world, the biggest names in sport in the fighting game.
I give it to him. He did a lot.
Gracies and beat them in a higher division. And you know what else he did? When he left and went to another division, he won a title. You know what Jose Aldo did when he left and went to a bigger division? He hasn't won a title. He couldn't do it.
Is he still competing though? Is he still competing? So let's talk about that for a second, since you didn't answer my actual question.
What was your question?
My question was, what significant in the ring like the low leg kick that Aldo had brought into it. What did BJ Penn bring into it? Except his pull jump.
His submission game.
What submission?
The Matt Hughes submission.
I'm saying what type of submission? Like he's not known for like he did a certain arm bar. Does he hold a record in any submission? Like none. Like because I have here on the list, like he only got submission of the night twice when Jose Aldo's not even a submission guy and he got it once.
Okay.
So like he was known for submissions, but he only has one more submission than a guy that doesn't ever submit. I've never seen Jose Aldo submit people, and he has a submission of the night in the UFC. I don't know what fight it was.
Did he not submit people because he wasn't good enough to do it?
Jose Aldo was not a submitter. That's not his staple. His staple was beat your legs.
Jose Aldo has world-class jiu-jitsu. He can very easily submit people.
But he only submitted 2 people in his fight night submission of the night.
Is it because he wasn't good enough to do it?
No, I think here's my honest opinion on BJ Penn. Here's my honest opinion on him. BJ Penn was like all of the former like pioneers of sports. I keep saying that because it's like when you talk about like Jackie Robinson in baseball, he's the first black athlete who broke the barrier. Does anybody ever say he's the best baseball player or let alone the best African-American baseball player? No, but he was the first guy to do this. He was the first guy to do that, this and that. A lot of things he did. Ronda Rousey, we used to always say she was the best female because she was the first one to do the thing. She's not even close to the best now. She got knocked out, whatever. It's not because she got knocked out. It's by what other women have done. So BJ Penn did a lot of things for the first time because the UFC wasn't so mainstream because there wasn't a lot of social media going around then. So when the social media came in, they started seeing it. So I personally think if BJ Penn would have fought in today's era with the science and the technology that they have, we wouldn't be looking at the same record. So I think, was he great for being like jumping the divisions and all that? Absolutely. It was. You don't see that happen anymore. There's only like a couple guys that do that because of what happens to your body. And he did that before the time, which is great, but he didn't produce constant success in those divisions. Like, yes, he has the 2 belts. The lightweight belt was phenomenal. That was a great run. He beat a lot of good people. But like I said, he beat Matt Hughes, and then he lost to him in a title fight when Matt Hughes was the champion again. Matt Hughes beat him. So he didn't beat him in the rematch. So it's like my point is like Jose Aldo, he was in one division. Yeah. And he beat the shit out of every single person because Dana White wasn't he saw what happened with BJ Penn when he allowed these guys to move up and fight. They lose their popularity very quickly. Like when he moved up in welterweight and he beat Matt Hughes, everybody thought this dude was gonna be the first ever like 3-weight champion. What happened? Not that he couldn't win that division again. Did he win at welterweight after he beat Matt Hughes again? I'm pretty sure he didn't because he fought GSP and GSP dominated him twice. That's a different story. GSP is just a freak.
GSP cheated. I've showed you the video.
So GSP tell everybody how he cheated because that shit's hilarious.
GSP cheated.
That shit's hilarious. Tell him how he cheated.
All right, so GSP put a video out on YouTube stating that he hired a man to kiss BJ on the cheek/lip area while he was walking to the ring in order to like distract his mental game.
Yo, that shit's hilarious. So that just brings my point. Like, but if that happens to me, I don't care. That just shows like he was very mentally weak.
So is that more of Dana not letting Jose Aldo move up in weight, or is that more of Jose Aldo not wanting to fight the biggest names and to stay in the 145?
I'm trying to think who was in the division above him at the time.
Of what, 145?
Yeah, he's 155. Who's the champion at 155 during Aldo's run? Like I don't think at the time Aldo was running the lightweight wasn't very good at that time. Like I'm not sure who the lightweight champion was. Do you remember? It's crazy because at the time Aldo was fighting at all the other champions. You had like Brock Lesnar was still fighting. Kane.
Okay, wait, but you had Anderson Silva too.
No, I'm trying to
champion.
Yeah,
right. Aldo didn't move up to fight him, but you know what BJ Penn did? He went up and he fought a middleweight. He fought a Gracie, the biggest name ever.
Okay,
and you know it's because he wanted to. He wanted to fight the biggest names and beat them, which he did. Every weight class he went up, he won until he got to Lyoto Machida. Jose Aldo didn't do that. He was comfortable at 145, staying there until he lost. He was comfortable staying there, beating the same rotation of guys until he lost, but not BJ. BJ wanted to beat the biggest names in the world, and that's what he did. He left the UFC to fight bigger names. Jose didn't want to do that. He wanted to stay right where he was because he knew that he could dominate that division. But that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough for BJ. BJ wanted the biggest name every single time.
Mommy,
You guys listening, it honestly comes down to Jose Aldo's record, which is phenomenal. Better record, better. I mean, he had a better win streak, that's for sure. But he stayed in that division until he lost. Once he lost in 14 seconds in the knockout, he left that division and was never able to win a championship again. BJ Penn won multiple championships in each division and fought bigger names. He went up to fight bigger names. So what it comes down to, do you think a better record against the same people is more outweighing than fighting and beating the biggest names in the planet? Not just in the UFC, but in the planet.
So, I mean, in my honest opinion, like I'm a firm believer that even if you move up and you fight these guys,
and he won. He fought them and he won.
So let's go head to head against opponents. They fought Frankie Edgar and Kenny Florian. He lost to Frankie Edgar 3 times. Jose Aldo beat the shit out of him.
Okay.
They both fought Kenny Florian and won. So against common opponents, he's 1-3. He lost 3 times to Frankie Edgar. How can you say he's one of the best ever in the lightweight division when that former lightweight champion beat him 3 times?
I mean, everybody loses.
Frankie Edgar
loses.
Frankie Edgar ain't in nobody's top 25. Ever.
Look at the guys that he did beat in his time. He murdered these people, ran through them. Okay,
So,
you know what? No, what honestly separates these two, like their career, what honestly separates is the Matt Hughes fight. Jose Aldo never fought a guy the caliber of Matt Hughes. Never fought anybody who just demolished that entire division, who was at the top of the mountain. When he did fight a big name opponent, like a top level guy, he lost. He got knocked out. Okay, not to say that the guys at the 145 division weren't at the top of the game, because they were top opponents, but they weren't on the level that Matt Hughes was at. And BJ went up and beat him. Okay, Jose never did that. He was never able to beat a top at the time. At the time, BJ Penn fought and beat Matt Hughes, who was bigger than him. He not only built the 155, he was pound for pound #1 fighter in the world. And he was down because he went up and he beat the bigger names. Jose Aldo didn't do that. Jose Aldo let the fighters come to him and just recycle through them in the 145 division.
Do we knock George St. Pierre for staying in the same division and whooping everybody's ass?
Very true.
Everybody has him #1 or #2 pound for pound.
That's great.
At the time, like what I was saying before, you gave all that great information, was at the time Jose Aldo was fighting, you had all these guys that were in a single division as champion. You brought up Anderson Silva. He was one of them. John Jones was another one. GSP was another one. Aldo and a Mighty Mouse. You had 6 guys at the same time where none of them went up. None of them went up in divisions, fought the champions, none of them. And that was because BJ Penn was such a failure moving up for the longevity.
How can you call him a failure when
he won 1 fight at welterweight?
And then he won at middleweight, and then he almost won at heavyweight.
In the UFC.
Not in the UFC.
I'm talking about in the UFC. See, Jose Aldo was so good that he still kept him. Jose Aldo's still fighting in the UFC. Because one thing that Jose Aldo isn't doing that BJ Penn is losing after age 30. Because after age 30, like BJ just stayed in Hawaii. Like his career was over. He lost 7 straight to end his career, right? 7 straight.
I can't say that. I can't say nothing again. He did. Once BJ Penn reached the top of his mountain, his tumble down was very quickly.
Horrible. He actually
was very quickly.
After the age of 30, he was 3-10-1. Like that's terrible.
But saying, for those years from like 18 to 30, for that 10-year stretch, he won 2 championships, another championship in a separate division, fought the biggest names on the planet. That's why I'm saying
before the age 30, he was in the UFC, which is the mainstream opponents, right? Like that's the mainstream opponents. He was 13-7, and then he lost 7 straight. So he didn't fight a lot of, caliber opponents in that time. He fought a lot of guys in different organizations, but like, were they in the different rules and shit like that? It's different. Like, that's why I keep saying he's a pioneer. Yeah. Like, could you imagine BJ Penn in today's UFC in that lightweight division? He would have no chance in that division because he couldn't even surmount a long win streak in his career.
You could say the same thing with Jose Aldo because he left that 145 division and he was never able.
Yet he's still the number 2 contender.
He was never able to get another title. He was never able. To this point, to this day, he was never able to win another championship.
So you're going to compare Max Holloway, Alexander Volkanovski, Conor McGregor, Peter Yan, which are all minus Conor, are still in the top 10 of the UFC currently, to fucking Kenny Florian, Sanchez, Frankie Edgar, even Craig Wildey, Ryan Hall, Dennis Seaver. Those are the guys that Penn was fighting at the end of his career. He couldn't even beat Craig Wildey. Like, my man right now is beating, like, he's a number 2 contender in the division right now.
I'm not saying he's not a great fighter. He is a great fighter. I'm saying, but okay. So what I'm saying is BJ Penn lost the title, right? He lost his welterweight title, got beat. Once he lost his title, he was able to come back and regain another UFC title. Once Jose Aldo lost his title, he was never able to get another title back. He wasn't able to do it. BJ Penn lost his title, and then he went on and won another UFC title.
That's true.
Jose Aldo was not able to do that.
That's literally the only good part of his career that he has on Aldo. The rest of it, he has nothing, bro. He has nothing.
What do you mean nothing?
Nothing. He has like, oh, he has 2 titles. Cool.
Why didn't Aldo do 5 weight divisions?
Like I just said, at the time in his prime at the UFC, none of the other fighters moved up. None of them. I just named 6. None of the champions moved up. They were all champions for 8 years. He was champion for 8 years.
Why didn't
he has
Aldo
more title fight wins than he has fights?
Why didn't Aldo move up to fight them?
Dana White did not allow any of the fighters to move up or down because BJ Penn did not succeed at that success for long term.
Then they should have left. BJ Penn left the UFC. He left the UFC
and he
to
lost.
fight higher competition then.
And he lost. And he came back. And then he won that loss.
What do you mean he lost? He fucking won.
Oh.
Who'd he lose to? He fucking won.
Would you rather
he left the UFC and he won.
Would you rather have 10 straight title victories or 7 straight losses? That was the comparison of the end of their careers. Like,
I'd rather have 2 separate belts. I'd rather have 3 belts total in 2 different.
Well, if you're looking at that, Jose Aldo has a title in UFC and he has a title in WEC. So
he does.
And he actually has another belt before he got in WEC. So technically he has 3 belts in 3 organizations, which is higher. But I didn't want to mention that because it's irrelevant because the division he was in was some shit in Brazil. And then on top of that, you said he was a gold medalist in the judo, right? Like, which is great.
But the gold medalist in
jiu-jitsu. Yeah. I mean, Jose Aldo was so good at MMA when he won the amateur, he didn't even compete in the one. He already got signed contract for WEC. So, like, he has a belt in that too.
And
he was 2004 amateur jiu-jitsu champion.
That's fine. You know what? BJ was the first non-Brazilian. He was the first non-Brazilian to win at the black belt level. That's fine that Jose Aldo
Pioneer.
Okay.
Pioneer.
Okay.
That, like, I'm saying, like,
they're both pioneers then, because, like,
but one's still fighting and has a better record in career.
Who's given a title and then you just recycle through the same division over and over again, you're a pioneer of that division. All right, if you're a person who wins a title and then, you know what, says this competition is not good enough, I'm gonna go up and I'm gonna fight the next champion and beat him, and then, you know what, he says, this competition is still not good enough, I'm gonna leave the UFC and I'm gonna fight the bigger names. And you know what, when he left the UFC, all of the top tier competitors went with him because of his name, and that's why Dana had to buy out the fucking other division, because they all left for fucking BJ.
So they all left, so he bought it, even though BJ Penn had 5 more fights in the UFC before they bought it from the time you're talking about when he left.
When BJ left and he went to K1 or wherever he went,
he came back and he fought for 5 more years in the UFC before, in 2010, they bought WEC. So that really had nothing to do with BJ Penn being great at this. It had the fact, like I said earlier, he bought them because they were getting more views. You can look it up. They were getting more views on their pay-per-views. Okay. Jose Aldo's cards on WEC than the pay-per-view main events were getting on those same weekends. That's why they bought him. It had nothing to do with BJ Penn.
By the way, who had bigger pay-per-views?
So actually, if you look at it,
besides the Conor fight, because that Conor did excel Jose Aldo to have one of the biggest pay-per-views in the planet.
What I'm trying to compare. BJ Penn I don't think Conor was that great, but I'm saying Conor was.
He was great enough to beat your boy in 14 seconds. What do you mean he was that great?
He was, but what happened? BJ Penn got that kiss blown to him, and he got beat up in that. Same thing happened to Aldo in that thing. He got in his head and he got knocked out. That's why I'm not bashing the loss of GSP or the Conor, because they were good at what they did. Like, I never knew GSP did that, first of all, but they both had a mental weakness gap in their thing, and they lost that fight. But the one difference is this: Jose Aldo never got the chance to refight him. BJ Penn refought George St. Pierre, and George St. Pierre TKO'd him. So that first flaw,
was that the fight where Dana was quoted by tweeting by saying, "I don't know if George cheated, but his corner definitely cheated by putting an extra Vaseline on his chest." Is that the fight you're talking about?
No, I don't know. I don't know the quote. I mean, if they did, because they do it in they used to do it up until last year until they got the actual sticks. So I remember watching all the fights they used to do that shit. Hey, if it was, it was. Hey, they didn't call it. But yeah, he TKO'd him, and he got called out. His corner made him quit. My one thing about like I said about BJ.
Oh, wait, are you talking about the split decision, right?
No, he TKO the second fight. The second fight, I'm not knocking him for that. He lost to GSP. Like I said, I give him credit for trying to go up and fight these guys, but I think he was ahead of his time. Like, Conor McGregor went up and he knocked out Jose Aldo. He knocked him out. But before that happened, BJ Penn was the first one to do that until Conor McGregor. And the reason why was because he didn't sustain. That's a big word I want to use.
So you're telling me that you said Conor McGregor was not that good of a fighter, right? You just said that not too long ago.
I don't
know. You're telling me that Dana had enough faith in him to let him move throughout weight divisions, but he didn't have enough faith in
one thing he did was
145 king, the quote unquote king of Rio. He didn't have enough faith in him to let him move up different weight divisions.
Actually, at the time that Jose Aldo lost to Conor, he wasn't champion.
He was still the champion.
He was the interim champion.
He was not he was the champion, and Conor was the interim champion.
That's what I'm saying, Conor. So when Conor knocked him out, he moved up, right? So remember he fought Chad Mendez before and then moved up, fought him. The reason he let Conor move up was because Conor was the best. He was Mike Tyson. He was Mike Tyson before Scott in your head made you scared. That was clearly what happened to Aldo. Aldo went completely against his game plan, and he got knocked the fuck out. I'm not gonna argue with that. We all remember watching that shit, and I was like, "Yo, Aldo's gonna whoop his ass," and he went 9-9 in 14 seconds.
I know, I bought it.
I remember we bought it, and it reminds me of the Paul Williams fight when we got the wings and we sat down. The fight was over. Remember that shit too? It was bullshit. But he had one moment in his career that he went against his game plan, and he got knocked out. And he's remembered for that. Like, come on, man. Like, the dude had 11 title fight wins.
He did. But let me ask you a question. An honest answer right now. Did Jose Aldo make more opportunity of his chance to fight in the UFC than BJ Penn did?
No, he did not. Absolutely not. Because
that's how I am judging this debate. Because with these two guys, amazing athletes, two of the best to ever do it. And like I said, when you got two of the best to ever do it, you have to look at who made the most of their time in their fighting career. Who made more opportunistic moves in their fighting? Because both of these guys going into the Hall of Fame for sure. No, BJ's already there. How else? Aldo has a better record for sure, but BJ made better opportunistic opportunities.
I agree with you. I think before that happened, before the BJ Penn moved up, Dana White didn't do that with people because people weren't at the time, like I said, science and all that. They didn't know how to do it and lose weight. They didn't know how to do it. BJ Penn did it, but he was so far ahead of his time they didn't do it efficiently. And that's not his fault at all. The shit we know now with eating and food and water, all that's crazy. And what I'm trying to say is that when he went up, he got the belt. But if he would have stayed at the lightweight division, he could have probably in that division, instead of winning 3, he probably could have won. He probably could have been tied with Aldo with whatever Aldo had. Maybe. It's not easy to do that. We've only seen it a couple times. But that's what I'm saying. Like when he went up and lost, BJ Penn, and he lost. He won the welterweight belt, lost, and then left because they didn't want to pay him. Dana White realized he's like, "Yo, I fucked up. I should just kept this guy here, paid him more money, and let him run through these guys." So after that happened, when they came Aldo in, at that time when he had those 6 champions, he didn't want to fuck up and do that again until Conor, because Conor was just so electric in how he talked that it was like, even if he lost, this dude's still going to get promoted. Look at it. He's still getting title fights, and the dude has been getting his ass whooped. But no one else, Dana doesn't really let anyone else do that. Like, he let Cormier do it, and then Cormier let the belt go. Like, Jose Aldo didn't have the opportunity to do some of the things that Penn did, because a lot of the things that Penn did didn't get long-term success for the UFC's end. Like, people know BJ Penn because it's phenomenal what he did. I'm never knocking for that. It's amazing. Because like I said to you off camera before, I think if he fought and did that shit today, his career would look a lot different. He would have a lot more title fights because just the science would allow him to know how to do it better. But at the time, that's why I call him the pioneer, because he was the first one to do it. And then Dana White was like, "Yo, we fucked up. We should have cash cowed this motherfucker in his division and let him win." Because, like I said, he ended his career on all them losses, and that's what we all talk about. Okay. But we all know, like, when we talk about Silva lost, 3 in a row? We don't talk about that for Silva. But, like, he did it just in a different style when he lost those fights. That's why I bring it up.
I do agree with you that Dana did put restrictions on these fighters so that they couldn't fluctuate between the weights. And that's why I'm saying, all right, BJ definitely made more opportunity of his time.
He did great at it.
So you can't
try one of the best ever.
The only thing
expanding
that I can say that really separates these two career-wise is that Matt Hughes fight. Because
good point though.
Matt Hughes had the same had the same energy as Conor. Destroyed the entire division, was the man in the UFC, number one, like ran through that division, just beat everybody in his division. He was the Conor of his time, just not as you didn't talk as much. And BJ went in there and steamrolled him. And what happened when Conor McGregor fought Aldo? He steamrolled him in 14 seconds. So to me, that is the big difference.
Yeah,
is that Aldo was able to beat the number one man. BJ was able to beat the number one man in amazing fashion, steamrolled him. Aldo was not. So when you look at these two careers, the restrictions that Aldo had prevented him from making the achievements that Penn had. I believe that. But that Matt Hughes fight has to be taken into account.
I agree with you. I mean,
if Aldo would have beat Conor McGregor, which I personally thought he would have. Like, if I was a betting man, I would have bet on Aldo that fight.
Very disappointing.
But he didn't. If he would have won that fight, it would be a different story.
Like we look at hypotheticals, like I just did. If Penn was fighting now, like if Aldo didn't lose the fight to Conor, like this isn't even like he might be in talks for being the GOAT, like Jose Aldo, like one of the GOATs. But he lost. It's hypothetical. He got knocked the fuck out too. That's not the way you want to go out. The Matt Hughes fight, I can't knock that because Matt Hughes is one of the top 3-4 welterweights, and BJ Penn moved up and beat him in the division. It was phenomenal. But he lost to him twice after that.
That's fine. He did lose to him. He did lose to him twice.
That's why it doesn't get respected enough.
However, when he did get the opportunity to fight him in his fucking prime, he had beat every. This was like pre-train accident. This was Matt Hughes in his prime, like beat everybody in his division. He beat everybody. Aldo beat everybody in his division as well. And BJ Penn went up and he beat the top dog. When the big top dog came down to 145, Aldo couldn't do it. He couldn't beat him. He got knocked out. And I do. See what you're saying. It was the Holly Holm kid before Holly Holm.
But at the same time, we're saying Conor moved down to fight him.
That's fine.
There's a difference there than moving up, especially for like BJ Penn. He did fight a heavyweight, like you said. I don't think he was. I think him going to heavyweight is one reason. Like fight fans like me, I just think it was just him trying to get a draw. Like he should never have went up to heavyweight. He's what, 5'6"? How the hell did he fight a heavyweight?
He one of the biggest. He was 190. He was 190 when he stepped in there, and Lyoto was like 205.
But Lyoto wasn't really a heavyweight either. But still, like like I said, I'm not knocking him. He went out and he fought a lot of good fighters.
So my personal opinion is Bobby won this debate.
No.
Right?
There's no fucking.
I think he beat me, but
I don't know. You have my heart racing here so far.
I think the better.
You can't say that in the debate. They got to vote now. You just no.
I think he beat me, but
I'm having a heart compilation still. I'm like, yo, this
motherfucker. No, don't say that, Craig. Please don't say that. Don't tap out.
Them two. I'm not tapping out. I'm saying he put on he had better stats. He had better numbers than I did, but he has no answer for the Matt Hughes fight.
I don't, because I agree with you on it.
And
I'm not going to sit here.
That's what separates these two. That's why
it's true.
That is the big difference. Whether I win, whether I lose, whatever you take away from this as an audience, you cannot deny the fact that BJ beat the number one man, Matt Hughes, and when the number one man fought Aldo, who was Conor McGregor, Aldo lost. That is the big difference between the two fighters.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That's the one thing that's bigger than both of their careers. Restrictions from Dana prevented Aldo from coming up in weight divisions, but he couldn't. When the fighters came to him, he couldn't win. When BJ went to the other fighters, he won. That's what separates them too.
I mean, I'm not gonna knock because, like I said, Matt Hughes was a great win. Matt Hughes, I don't know how he's, he was a beast at the time. My only comeback to that was, like I said, he lost to him twice after, but he did beat him. It's really irrelevant that he lost to him twice after, but that's why a lot of people don't credit and remember that he actually beat Matt Hughes. Because whenever we talk conversation of, who BJ Penn beat, and I'm like, well, I know who he lost to, but that Matt Hughes fight, like you said, and it's great.
It's fine. Like, he lost to Matt, but after he lost to Matt, he was still able to come back and win another championship.
He won the lightweight.
After Aldo lost to McGregor, he was never able to come back and win another championship.
I mean, another thing I left out with Jose Aldo is BJ Penn didn't have it. He was actually the youngest lightweight champion ever. Flyweight champion ever.
Because he was given the belt. Yeah, he's given the belt.
No, it was because they didn't have that division in any other sport because, who wants to watch these? It was like when they remember, back in the day when we were growing up, they used to watch the little guys. They only did the karate. They didn't do UFC and all that. And now, even now, you don't have those guys maintaining cards. You got Max Holloway and Volkanovski fighting the third fight, which both of them beat Aldo, but both of them were hybrid fighters. That's one thing I think is underlooked for both of their careers, to be honest with you. It's hard to fight. They both fought in pretty much completely different but yet identical types of eras. I'm trying to say is they fought older guys that did one thing and then these new guys that were trying to transition into different styles. BJ Penn fought guys that were strictly a wrestler or strictly a fighter. And then at the end of his career, when he was fighting the new breed, that's why I lost to these guys. Not because he wasn't good, because BJ Penn still, until his last two fights, he still competed in the fights. But the guys that were fighting, the transitions of their games is look at Max Holloway now. Max Holloway gets punched in the face and throws punches, and he's never been knocked down or knocked out in his career, which is crazy. It's crazy. And then you got Volkanovski, he's fighting guys, a freak of nature, and they're fighting, and they're a co-main event. So the fact that these little guys still aren't on the main cards, it actually blows my mind. Because as a fight fan, I prefer to watch a BJ Penn type of fight and an Aldo type of fight than seeing these I don't like watching these middleweights. The heavyweights, they're not good. And like you said, BJ Penn was in the era where people started to say, these dudes are fucking fast as shit. And he was part of that era. And he was a big reason, like you said, of why mainstream media took on the UFC and shit like that. So I'm not going to knock BJ Penn for that either. I don't know. I just feel every time I turn on a BJ Penn fight, because I guess when we really started getting into UFC, it was 2006, 2007?
Yeah.
He wasn't the BJ Penn we remember. So that's
you guys who don't remember, you have to go to YouTube and you have to type in the rise of BJ Penn and the rise of Jose Aldo. You have to see these two from the start of their career to where they ended up. Both of these two.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't get.
It's like when people,
both had phenomenal careers. You don't get any better.
Yeah, it's like when people talk about baseball and they keep saying Babe Ruth is the best player ever, and I'm like, like these kids nowadays, like baseball players, are throwing 97-mile-an-hour fastballs with sliders. Babe Ruth ain't smoking a cigar and eating a hot dog and drinking a beer and hitting these guys. Like, he's a pioneer of the sport. Like, he would never compete in today's era, and that's just how I look at BJ Penn, because the later part of his career, even though he was older, it looked like that. So when I'm talking about who is better, I look at the whole era. Like, a lot of fighters just look at, like, their legacy and, like, remember. It's like what the bracket we're doing. Everybody's taking Mike Tyson. Like, it's like, come on, man. Mike Tyson ain't better than Floyd Mayweather, guys. Like, and he's not. But is he,
I don't want.
You know, I'm just saying, like, should he be remembered with them? Like, BJ Penn, should BJ Penn be in the top GOAT conversation? Probably not. But should he be talked about with them guys?
Absolutely.
Because he impacted the game.
He's part of history.
He did. And I give him that. Because without him, a lot of the stuff in the UFC would not be happening right now, and that's a huge part of it. But when I look at Jose Aldo's career, I look at not just that, because like I said, he brought a division in, however you want to look at it. They bought it, whatever. He still started that division, and he allowed the other young guys to come in, however you want to look at it. But he won so many fights in a row for such a long time, and he did it at dominant fashion. And now at an older age, where a guy like BJ Penn, when he got older, he lost a lot of his footwork, his speed, his power. Jose Aldo is still a top 2 contender in his division.
What do you mean by dominant fashion? I remember a lot of Jose Aldo fights going to a judge decision.
George St. Pierre has the most unanimous decisions in history. The most.
Okay.
Dominant. Everybody remembers he dominated everybody, right? Jose Aldo has the second most unanimous decisions in history in the UFC title fights.
BJ Penn has finishes. BJ Penn went out there and finished these guys. He didn't leave it to the judges. He has finishes.
Who has more finishes?
What's up?
Who has more finishes between these two?
I didn't write that down because I don't think it. Jose Aldo actually has more finishes. I think, but he has double the fights.
Yeah, so, he has more fights.
You can't really look at it like that. It's not fair. Like, I can literally say, "Oh, Jose Aldo had 34 fights, this and that."
Yeah.
Like the impact that Jose Aldo compared to
I think Penn has like 8 to 10 like finishes in the UFC. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But in terms of who made like more, I mean, you could say like BJ was a 2-time coach on their Ultimate Fighter show, and Jose wasn't, and stuff like that. But
two-time coach?
I think he won on twice. Yeah.
Who coached? GSP and someone else?
Who's that guy? I think it was Frankie.
Frankie, that's right. I forgot he did the Frankie.
You can say Aldo wasn't, and all the things that BJ did. You can say that Aldo didn't do, but the only thing that really divides their two careers is that Matt Hughes fight. Because BJ was able to beat the number 1 guy, and Aldo wasn't. He lost. Not to say he wasn't able to beat the number 1 contenders in his division, which he did. He is the best featherweight fighter in the history of the sport, no doubt about it. But
I don't even know.
That's the only thing that separates these two careers. They're both Hall of Fame careers. They're both legendary pioneers of the sport. But BJ was able to beat the number 1 man, the pound-for-pound number 1 man in the UFC, Matt Hughes, and Aldo was not able to beat McGregor. That is the big separation between their two careers. And if I was here representing Jose Aldo, I would say the same exact thing, because they both had amazing Hall of Fame careers.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like,
you can't say who's better between 2 Hall of Fame careers. You can't, because they're both 2 of the greatest to ever fight, and they made it to the Hall of Fame.
Like, yeah, I agree.
Well, what separates them is that Matt Hughes fight. Yeah. Not even because I'm representing BJ Penn. And realistically, the only thing that separates their 2 careers is that Matt Hughes fight and that McGregor loss.
It's true. I agree with you there. And that kind of makes it, like I said, if Aldo didn't lose that, it wouldn't even
if Aldo would have won that McGregor fight, which I personally thought he would have. I can't tell you how many times I watched that promo. It got me super amped.
Now he got a meme and a clip. Now I could pull it up on my phone.
And if Aldo would have won, Like if he would have beat McGregor, it would be a completely different conversation.
I mean,
but
so
like in their two careers,
like we're all talking about like it's all judgmental. I could sit here and I would have done a very similar argument for BJ Penn, and that just shows his greatness in itself. They're both great fighters, both great impacts on the game, and like I said, we grew up watching a lot of Aldo. We didn't grow up watching BJ Penn like some people did, which also changes a lot of my opinion on it because like you're a jiu-jitsu guy too, so you have to put a lot of more emphasis on because he was one of the best ever jiu-jitsu guy ever, and you're a jiu-jitsu guy. So like someone like you looks at that and it's impressive, which it is. But
phenomenal.
On the other end, I look at it like, all right, well, you got another guy who's really good at jiu-jitsu like a Damian Maia who submitted people. Why did BJ Penn use that more in the UFC? Because we all know he was very good at it, but he didn't utilize it enough. You know?
On the same hand, you could say that Jose Aldo was known for his leg kicks, right? He was a predominant striker. He was known to leg kick you to your leg, like Uriah Faber, till his leg fell off.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor was a striker. He came in and said, he literally said, I'm gonna knock him out with my left hand. Striker versus striker. Why couldn't Jose Aldo step up? Matt Hughes, predominant wrestler, known as one of the best wrestlers in the UFC history. BJ Penn went up there, wrestled him, took him down, choked him out. Wrestler versus wrestler, BJ Penn won. Striker versus striker, Aldo lost.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like a lot of the stuff that like BJ Penn losing a lot didn't sit well with me in the longevity.
His record does not. His record does not.
That's just
show
I can't.
His career.
Yeah, I can't.
But he
look
does
at
have
his stats and say, "Yo,
he does have bigger name wins than Aldo does." It doesn't get any bigger than Gracie. He beat two of them. He does have bigger name wins. He does have more losses than him, but he did have more opportunities.
Yeah, I mean,
he took advantage of those opportunities. Look, I mean, what else? When it comes down to it, is that Matt Hughes fight.
I think we cover a lot of shit though. I think
BJ winning. I think if you're Bobby right now, and you're fighting for Jose Aldo, BJ winning that Matt Hughes fight crushes you, because in that career, you can't come back from that. Jose Aldo doesn't have anything to come back from that from.
That's why he's still fighting, trying to get another strap.
If he does win another title,
I don't see him beating them guys.
You can come back and say something else, but he wasn't able to win another title after he lost.
How old is he now? What? I think he's 33.
He's up there.
Or 34.
He's definitely got wear and tear.
Listen, if Jose Aldo goes out there and he ends up getting even a number one contender shot against TJ Dillashaw and beats him, or gets a title shot and beats Aljamain Sterling, I mean, like, he got to be in the top 5 GOAT. But like, I personally, I got him in this debate. I don't think he can beat them guys. I think he's too old. He's still competing.
I do,
but like Scarface, man, I don't know how much longer he has. But if he does win, I mean, it would be very impressive.
All right, fellas.
Yeah.
But no, like
let's
like both great careers, but that Matt Hughes fight puts BJ over the top. And if you say otherwise, that's not realistic.
All right, before we get into these closing statements, you guys great. You guys sound great. Like, perfect. I do have a question for Craig, and I do have a question for Bobby. I'm gonna start with Craig. Is BJ Penn considered the greatest featherweight, lightweight, welterweight, middleweight? Is he in any of those top 10s?
Yeah, he's considered the number 2 155er of all time, in my opinion. I don't know about the records, but to me, number 1 is my boy, Mr. Flawless, Khabib. And Khabib is quoted as saying that BJ is the number 2 155er of all time. I mean, Dana White came out and said he built the division. Joe Rogan is quoted as saying, ladies and gentlemen, that's BJ Penn is the greatest lightweight of all time. There's no denying that Jose Aldo is the greatest featherweight of all time. He ran that division. I don't see anybody ever having the title defense that Jose Aldo had in that division.
Alexander Volkanovski will.
However,
we're gonna be talking about Volkanovski, my boy. Listen to bald head, baby, bald headed Volk.
Aldo wasn't able to beat the highest names of the sport like BJ was.
Now here's my question for Bobby: what was Jose Aldo's like fight that like blew you out of the water? Like his statement fight.
I'm biased, to be honest with you. It's hard to be like not biased on this because even Craig will back me on this. I'm a huge Uriah Faber guy. I love Uriah Faber, and when Uriah Faber got kicked so bad that this motherfucker couldn't walk to his stool from Jose Aldo, that's when I became a Jose Aldo fan.
Yeah,
because
like that was his statement fight, you would say, right?
I believe it was his second.
I don't know. There was a fight.
There was a couple, man.
I forget the name, but there was a fight where Jose Aldo came running out of the corner and did a flying knee and knocked the guy out.
Yeah,
I forget the guy's name.
I believe that was on the first Mendez fight. He did that too.
He did Mendez. He did do
like
that.
That
was a pretty big statement.
Yeah, it was a big statement. But like I said, like that. After that fight too, that's when they implemented that they're not allowed to carry the guys to the corner.
Yeah,
they carried Uriah Faber to the corner and put him on the stool. And I remember after that fight, they didn't do that anymore because like his leg was like black and blue for like 6 months.
Yeah,
I was a big Uriah Faber fan. I was like, yo, like he shouldn't fight again. Like Jose Aldo was like, it's weird. Like when Jose Aldo got into the UFC, it happened with GSP too. When you win the championships, you just dominate like the first, and then for some reason, like I don't know, it's like they try to practice their skills on these guys. They don't finish them, and I feel like if they would finish them and just go out there and do their thing, they'd have a lot more statements.
Yeah.
So for me, it was definitely the Uriah Faber fight.
But in all actuality, if you're watching this podcast and you go on YouTube and type in like Jose Aldo mixtapes, you'll see some of the craziest stand-up fighting that you'll see.
Yeah, he's amazing with stand-up.
That he doesn't have that crazy highlight reel that
Jose
Aldo has. That's for sure. If you YouTube like just Jose Aldo mixtapes, like you'll see some like
but at the same time, I still
great
I don't personally think a mixtape makes him a better fighter because like
I'm just saying like for those of you who don't know, like if you're looking for like I could be extremely disrespectful and say his stable fight was losing in 14 seconds to Conor McGregor.
It is. But it's starting. That's
if you're looking for like his actual stable fight, just look up the mixtape. Yeah. Because like there's no it's hard to say what like his come on the scene fight was. Like his highlight reels, he just demolished everybody. Like his stand up was so great.
Like I said earlier, his kicks, bro. Like his
Muay Thai was just unbelievable.
Like I remember he brought the only one I remember that had better kicks than Jose Aldo from like Jose Aldo's prime was Leonardo Barbosa. He was the only guy I remember that had more lethal kicks. And
that was the thing.
That dude, I feel like all them Brazilians like once because they're soccer players and shit down there. Yeah. So like once Jose Aldo was like, all right, cool, I'm not gonna break my leg by kicking this dude. The Brazilians started using their soccer kicks to just bully the shit out of people.
And to give Jose Aldo credit, Jose Aldo he never got knocked out on videotape in a bar fight like BJ Penn did. to give Jose Aldo credit, he never did. At least on camera, he never
did. At
least
for the last 6 years, when we always argue, because like we talk about like lightweight champ, because like it's lightweight division's probably, I think if I'm correct, the only division that has the champions win streak is only at 3, and there's like 4 of them. Since it's Khabib, BJ Penn, and then there's another guy on there. They're only at 3. Like all the other divisions, they're at like 8, 7, shit like that. Yeah. Like the lightweight division is tough. Like, and I firmly believe that if BJ Penn did not go up the welterweight and try and do all this shit that they want him to do, he would have a stranglehold on that thing. But he doesn't. You can't say hypotheticals, but I mean for him still to be at number 3, we all know Khabib retired early, but still, it's pretty impressive. And like I said, like I think the lightweight division in that time BJ Penn fought was better than what it was in the gap between BJ Penn and Khabib. Like I think there's no arguing that either. If, like you said, when BJ Penn got out, the lightweight division fell off.
They
really
canceled.
did.
They canceled him for 3 years.
Yeah,
they
they
couldn't
did.
survive without him.
Because like Frankie Edgar's like, listen, I love Frankie.
A lot of other fighters were like in the 155 division, like Jens Pulver and there was a lot of rumors that a lot of steroids and drugs were being taken in that 155 division.
Whatever.
And that is partially why they canceled it. I just used it as BJ Penn leaving.
No, but it's
for their reasoning of canceling division.
We know how I feel about steroids and sports and shit like that, so like I really don't care. But even if it was,
but no, that is the reason they canceled the 155. There was a lot of rumors about drugs.
That gives steroids. Him more credit that he beat those guys, though. You know,
I used it to propel my argument, but
he wasn't on steroids, though. Do you think he was on steroids,
no,
BJ Penn? I don't think BJ Penn was on steroids. I think he was a genetic freak. Yeah, he got knocked out at a bar, but like he also jumped out of a fucking pool, like no hands. Which
by the
one
way,
of the craziest videos I've ever seen.
I've never seen anybody do that before BJ Penn.
Never. Like
I've seen a lot of people do it.
I can remember with BJ Penn.
I see people do it backwards.
Yeah.
But I think he was the first one to do that I've seen. I haven't seen anybody before him do that.
It was unbelievable. How tall is BJ Penn?
He's a shorter guy. He's not.
He's 5'9". He was jumping out of like the pool was what, maybe like 5 feet.
It
was crazy. Yeah. I still remember that shit. And that's why I was joking around. I was like, what has he done ever good except jump out of a pool? But that's complete disrespect to his life.
Yeah. I can remember this one. I think it was during the Ultimate Fighter. He brought his fighters down, and he BJ Penn went to the bottom of the lake, grabbed the rock, and ran with it, and just ran at the bottom. That's the one thing I can remember firmly, his training.
Like, how crazy was it that he went on the Ultimate Fighter and said, "Raise your hand if you want to be on my team," and everybody else just go to the other side. Like, how crazy! And Dana was like, "What the fuck is this?" That was pretty awesome. But no, and
all right, fellas, give me some closing statements.
And honestly, my closing statement, and all realistically, you got to give credit where credit's due. I am now 0-2 against Bobby in debates, and
I don't know. Don't say that.
No, and you got to give credit where credit's due. But BJ Penn had a more opportunistic career than Jose Aldo did, and that's just the reality of it. But Jose Aldo does have a better record.
My closing statement is I just fucking hate BJ Penn. I just don't like it, bro. I don't like him.
That's fucked up.
I don't like him outside of the ring.
Up.
I don't like how he was outside of the ring and this and that. But no, in all seriousness, bashing BJ Penn in the ring is it's hard to do because numbers don't say the whole story. And when we look at BJ Penn's record, you're like, wow, this guy fucking sucked. How the hell is he in the Hall of Fame? But he's in the Hall of Fame despite his record. Shows a lot of what he's done. So his legacy, his impact on UFC, is phenomenal.
Right. To be the first non-Brazilian person to win a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament should put you in the Hall of Fame by yourself, on its own. To be the first non-Brazilian person to win at the black belt level, that's what Brazil's like. That's their thing. That's what they're known for. And to be the first non-American to go in there, the non-Brazilian to go in there and win, that alone should put you in the Hall of Fame.
Hey, no arguments there. And he
did it within 3 years.
He was
the average time it takes to get a black belt. I've known people that haven't gotten their black belts until 20 years in the training.
There. He was a hell of an athlete.
He got it in. There's only one person to ever get it in 3, and BJ did it in 4.
Was it George St. Pierre?
No, I forget it. That was another one where John Danaher even came out with the quote, the biggest one, probably the biggest name in coaching right now for jiu-jitsu is John Danaher, and I want to say he coached George St. Pierre against BJ Penn, and St. Pierre just destroyed his guard. At the time, BJ Penn was considered to have the greatest guard on the planet Earth,
bro.
And GSP just trashed it. Just broke his guard multiple times.
Yeah, well, like I said earlier, GSP is just a freak.
Granted, he did come out and say he cheated, and BJ Penn did take him to court. He did take him to court. He lost that court debate, but
Paul, what would you do if we're about to have a debate and I hired somebody to come kiss you? A dude.
And see, I'm a different beast. I'd be like, if he's live with me, I'm punching him in his mouth.
Yo, so here's my game plan. So when me and you actually debate each other eventually down the road, I'm gonna call E up. I'm gonna make E give you a kiss. I think E would do that for me. No, he definitely would.
I think he would actually show up to my doorstep.
Yeah. Hold up, somebody's at my door. Oh shit! I gotta call Steve. Steve lives right around the corner from you, so my man Steve. I
don't know if Steve would do it though. He's a little wholesome. But E, on the other hand, he'd be here front and center.
It'd be great. I mean, y'all, listen. I'm just gonna say, it's all about choice of who you think. Both great careers, both great legacies. The only difference, like he said, is the one win. But Jose Aldo is still going, so it's kind of like he's not done yet.
If he's still going, why didn't he win that second belt?
He's on his way, bro. He's about to beat Royd Boy, TJ Cheetah, and then he's going to beat Judge's Decision Cheater, aka guy I really hate now because he's lost a lot of money from me, Aljamain Sterling. No, I mean he's not going to beat either of them, to be honest with you. He's too old. Scarface is getting old. He don't have enough cocaine from Al Pacino anymore.
But that if you've never seen it, that Jose Aldo Conor McGregor build-up promo video was, in my opinion, the best promo video that the UFC ever put out.
It was, or UFC 200, which
by the way, BJ Penn was their first major promo video for the UFC. It was BJ Penn versus George St. Pierre, and you had George St. Pierre training in Canada, and BJ Penn living on a beach in Hawaii. It was their first major.
Have you actually watched that lately? Go back and watch that and look at the quality of the video.
Terrible, bro.
How far the shit has come in 15, 20 years. Like, you're looking at them like, what they must have like a flip phone.
What is the UFC called? They call it embedded or something? Yeah. That was like UFC's first big embedded video. It was GSP versus BJ Penn.
Listen, I mean, anytime GSP is involved with something, it's going to be good. So
all I know is when you leave the UFC and you beat not one but two Gracies, you should be solidified as a better career, hands down.
I didn't know he beat both Gracies.
He beat two of them. It was like it was Ricardo and somebody else.
And
like I said, from my viewpoint, he has so many losses at the end of his career when I watch UFC. So a lot of his victories and shit like that on outside UFC and all, I don't really remember them. So it's for me, you know. I'm not saying it has nothing to do with everybody's opinion on it though. But I mean, that's how I feel. Like he's, like I said, he's a pioneer of the sport, and he's always going to be mentioned when you mention UFC, which I don't know if Jose Aldo will be long term.
He will.
Maybe. I don't know. He's not even, like, the thing about it is, like, you got Anderson Silva from Brazil. You got other people from that country that will be named before Jose Aldo. So I don't know. I mean,
listen, when you're a competitor in combat sports at the highest level of UFC and you make it to the UFC Hall of Fame, you are always going to be remembered in that sport. You're always going to be talked about in that sport, no matter how much time passes. For example, BJ Penn is no longer fighting, and he is no longer the greatest 155er of all time. It is now Khabib, but he's still remembered as a great 155er, whereas Jose Aldo is still remembered as the greatest 145er to ever live.
Yeah, he was. He is.
For now.
Yeah, for now. That's true. For now.
How long? Like, that's one thing, like, when I'm knocking the shit out of BJ Penn here that you can't take away from him either. It's like, it took them a while to get another guy that was solidified as the best in that division.
By the way,
and you got two guys in the featherweight division now.
Question for both of you guys, trivia question. I do not know the answer to this. When I looked it up.
Oh, I thought you never had to look it up.
When I looked it up, it was when it told me that BJ Penn was the second person to ever hold two belts in two different weight divisions. It did tell me the name of the first person. I just forget who it was. But do you guys, either of you guys know who the first person was to hold two different weight division belts in the UFC?
Randy Couture?
It wasn't Randy Couture.
Really? He had the light heavyweight, and I thought he had the light and the heavy.
some random name I've never heard before.
I honestly don't know if I had to guess. Which
in UFC history.
I know
in UFC. BJ was the second person to hold 2 belts at 2 different weight divisions. There was somebody before him. I forget the name. It was some random name I've never heard before.
Wasn't. Hold on. I don't know. I gotta think about this. You got the name?
Hold on, I'll look it up.
I typed in 2 weight division champions. It came up Connor. It's not Connor. I know because I looked it up earlier, but I don't remember. Historical. Man, I don't even know. Like, honestly, if I had to guess, it wouldn't like be even close. Like, I was thinking Couture as well. Let's see. I got right here. Let's see. Come on, load. I mean, it had to be a lighter weight guy, like maybe like a middleweight. Like my first thought was maybe it was what's it called? Your boy, Chuck.
No, it was somebody I forget his name, but it was somebody not like you have to be a super hardcore fan of the sport to know his name.
It wasn't Randy Couture, 1997, 2003.
Yeah, I thought it was Randy Couture.
Randy Couture. You're talking about not in the UFC or in the UFC?
In the UFC.
I see Randy Couture. When did BJ Penn win it? Yeah, it was Randy Couture.
No,
it was Randy Couture. Joe Warren?
In 1997, he won the heavyweight title. And in 2003, he won the light heavyweight title against
Randy Couture, yeah.
And then BJ Penn did it at 2004 and 2008.
Wait, hold on.
That's crazy. List of multi-champions in UFC history. Let's see. Maybe there's someone else that I don't know of. Couture. Yeah, it was Randy Couture. Are you sure? Yeah, it wasn't just a different like affiliation. Because there's probably some like guys in like K1 that won K1 and won the other stuff. They had a lot of those.
I forget.
Who was the first UFC fighter ever to hold 2 belts?
I forget the name. Not at the same time. 2 belts.
Yeah,
but not at the same time. I forget the name though.
There's only like 5 of them.
But I remember reading it because it said BJ Penn was the second person to do it, and then
so it was Randy. They might have had an interim belt. Like maybe whatever you saw was an interim belt.
Okay.
I mean, because sometimes they do. I don't know how that works. Yeah, I got Randy Couture on mine.
Yeah, it's Randy Couture for me.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Yeah, first because when I think of champ, I think of Randy Couture right away.
Yeah, same here. But if we can't find it, find it later, man.
We'll find it later.
Today, Paulie, it's a little different, man. On the other end.
Hey, I'm getting used to it. I'm getting used to this shit. But all right, fellas. I mean, you guys did put on the show. If I'm looking at it from somebody from like who doesn't know jack shit about MMA,
it was Randy Couture. I apologize about that. I don't know what I was thinking. It was Randy Couture.
He just wants to say BJ Penn's name again as double champ. Like
technically, he was the first person to hold 2 belts at the same time because he was co-champion when he won the welterweight title.
Well, like you said, he
was co-champion of 155. There was no other champion after him, and he was the co-champion when he won the welterweight. So it'll say Conor McGregor, but if you read like the Reddit reviews, technically it was BJ Penn. But no, what else is like? What do you think, Paul?
About like when I think about like double champions, or
no, like who's in your opinion, not going off this debate, who do you think had the better career?
All right, so like I always do for all these debates. If I didn't know jack shit about MMA, the way you bring it into me, you starting with BJ Penn, is he was the first man to do things. He was a pioneer. You did present him. He did have big fights. At the end of the day, that does matter. He did have a lot of big fights, and he won a couple of those big fights as well. But when it comes to Jose Aldo, from what I'm learning, if I didn't know shit, I mean, he had the longest streak as a champion, considered one of the greatest featherweights of all time. he's still in it. He's still ranked high in 2 divisions. So I mean, if you're looking at total greatness, or are you looking at full body of work?
Do you put the records above the higher names and and more opportunistic moves?
It does matter. That I honestly, he did bring good awareness to that. That the bigger names that he fought at, especially at that time, that was a young UFC. At that time, that was a young UFC when it was starting to be mainstream. BJ Penn, honestly, he's one of those biggest parts. Even though I do say Chuck Liddell and Randy Couture's fights, they were kind of bigger. But BJ Penn did put the plateau up there.
Chuck
and Tito, yeah, my bad. I'm thinking Randy. But yeah, Chuck and Tito, I would say they made people love MMA fighting after that. But BJ Penn is definitely somebody who paved the way. So it depends how people are going to look at this, man.
So it's a personal opinion on better records, better title defense streak, or winning bigger names and doing it across 5 weight divisions.
Yeah.
I mean, huge weight division gaps, like going from 155 all the way up to heavyweight. That's a 60-pound swing.
And he looked like a butterball when he did it.
I know. I'm actually going to go back and watch that fight just to look at it.
No,
he almost beat Machida. He was very close to beat. I think he lost in a split decision. I can't remember, but I think he lost. I could be wrong.
I'm definitely going to go back and watch just to check him out. Was that Pride or K1?
I think it was K1.
Yeah, I'm gonna go check that out. I'm gonna see what it's about.
If you've never seen it, go YouTube and watch Rumble on the Rocks. That was a great event. That's where BJ beat Matt Hughes, by the way.
No, I remember it was fun. We watched it before, but like after that, they never did any more of the. I think they did one more, like tournament like that, and then they stopped.
Yeah, they stopped it. Yeah,
they changed all the regulations and rules and shit. It's like.
So, people out there listening, both fighters, Hall of Fame careers. You just put the record over bigger names and more weight class opportunities, or do you put the bigger names, more weight classes, bigger fights over records? Personal opinion, whatever you choose.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, both guys are great. I think we broke down those stats here. So, honestly, I really don't care if I won or if you won. This was fun.
So thanks for having me on.
Fun. These are always fun, guys.
Give my guys some love, support them.
I mean, I love doing the debates because even though I don't like BJ Penn, you still get a lot of information from BJ Penn. That I'm not researching him as a fan to all right, let's what's the good things he did, and you heard a lot of new good information from BJ Penn. It's makes me respect his career a lot more than I did before. I still don't like him at all, but there's a lot of fighters out there that I don't like. Like a lot of people hate John Jones. The dude's a dickhead, but he's always going to be in the argument for top. So it's just because you're a dickhead doesn't mean you're not great.
Is he ever going to fight at heavyweight?
They're saying he's fighting in September against Stipe Miocic, but it hasn't been confirmed yet.
I don't know.
So we'll see.
What do you think about Stipe? I think Stipe's past the hill too.
Stipe's trying to get.
I think he's on his. I think he's on his way out.
He's trying to get a payday, but the UFC, UFC is going to pay John Jones whatever he wants now because Francis is leaving. So they're in a scramble to get a headliner at that division.
So what do you do when Francis? Do you put interim titles? Do you strip Francis? Do you?
No. He would just strip himself. He would just relinquish his belt and leave and go. He's going to fight Tyson Fury.
Didn't he say he wanted to resign? They just had to give him the rights to the Tyson Fury fight or something.
He said the only way he would resign is if the money's right and they make sure he gets paid what he wants for Tyson Fury, which is not going to happen. He's not. I mean, the money that he's going to make if he goes and does it solo is just going to be. It's going to be more than his entire contract for the UFC. It would be stupid on his end. But I understand if he wants to sign it, take a little bit of a pay cut, and get more fights in the UFC to solidify.
He's pulling a BJ Penn where he's having a contract dispute and leaving.
completely different sport, though.
Bobby. Okay.
I mean, yeah, it's true. It's true though. He is because like he's going to make $60 million to fight Tyson Fury, where he makes $500,000 to $1 million to fight in the UFC.
He's just a later version of BJ because BJ left to fight bigger names.
Honestly, like I wouldn't even qualify them. BJ Penn is doing it completely different in a better way for his sport. Where
I think he wanted more money. They didn't want to pay him.
Yeah, at the time, he still didn't get it. He came back and he didn't get it still, which you're not getting money from Dana White. Like that's the thing. It's like,
and Francis wants more money, and Dana's not going to do it, so he's going to leave and fight bigger names.
The difference is this: the difference between them is that Francis is trying to get money for the entire roster. He just came out. He's trying to get money for the entire roster, more pay for all of them. Where BJ Penn did it for himself. There's nothing wrong with either of them at all. But yeah, I think John Jones will be back. But hey, whatever. That was fun though. I had a great time. I don't know.
Shout out to Rafa Nadal, my man.
Yeah, the GOAT, baby, the GOAT.
But seriously, guys, thanks for having me on. Appreciate this. Look forward to coming back and debating Paul or Bob or whoever wants to step up about anything. I know Paul's been blowing up the group chat about Fedor debates, so whenever you guys want to come on, just let me know.
Oh, hold up.
And I'll
did we just get a gauntlet throwdown between Paul and Craig of Fedor?
I just gotta find. Listen, I gotta find the right heavyweight for.
You know what? Fedor. Like we should have done. It's what we should have done with BJ Penn. We should have just argued as BJ Penn an all-time like GOAT, yes or no? Because I would have argued no, and he would have argued yes, but we threw Penn in. So I mean. Technically, for Fedor, since he didn't fight in the UFC, how can you compare a UFC fighter to Fedor?
That's what makes that hard. I got to find the right heavyweight. I mean,
That's another reason. Fedor wanted an extreme amount of money to fight in the UFC, and Dana wouldn't pay him. That was another reason.
I wouldn't have came over either.
For some reason, I think he was the only one in his contract when the UFC bought that organization that Fedor didn't have to fight for them.
Yep.
I don't think it was Fedor's fault. I think it was his management team wanted an obscene amount of money.
Fedor also, when they bought it over, he was under his contract was up, so he got lucky. Otherwise, he probably would have. I
think it was in his contract that it said if we get bought out, you have the option to leave or stay.
But Paul, you can think of a heavyweight.
When you're undefeated for 10 years, like
I have 3 in my head. That I could probably go against with Fedor.
Can we Cain Velasquez? Cain.
I can use Cain. That's one of my guys. I was going to use Cain.
You are not allowed to use Cain Velasquez.
Why?
Boy? You can't.
I might do it because you would.
If you argued Craig against Cain Velasquez, he'd be propping up Cain Velasquez the whole fight because he loves him. So you can't use Cain Velasquez. It's not fair.
Cain is my
and Cain is actually like a legit stud. God bless him.
What's going on with him, by the way? Is he
like in jail?
Free Cain, man. Free Cain. Because he was just doing the right thing, in my opinion.
Did he get out? Is he still in?
Judge declined his bail twice.
Really? He's probably not going to see.
He did attempt to kill somebody and shoot him in broad daylight and traffic. I mean, a little crazy. Do I blame him? No. We all like Dana White said, like we all say when someone molests someone and they get out, we would kill them. Well,
Cain actually did it.
He did it. So
Cain actually did it.
Yeah,
I'm saying for him because he did the right thing.
Yeah, like the UFC actually wrote a lot of.
Who else would you bring in there? Who else would your name be for heavyweight?
Stipe could be in it.
Stipe, DC. You could throw DC. You can.
DC was never.
He was, but like he didn't have a lot of fights at heavyweight, so it's kind of. If you're
comparing, if you even want to say his what?
You're right. It's Strike Force. He did fight.
Yeah, he was a dominant heavyweight over there, and he beat 2 guys that beat Fedor over there. So I mean,
Yareem and Bigfoot, right?
Oh, you're talking about Overeem, the steroid guy who had to mysteriously go to like Switzerland for 3 months or something?
No, he didn't beat Reem. He beat the other steroid guy. We're doomed.
The
other steroid guy. He didn't play
2 guys that beat Fedor. That's why I'm thinking DC will be good. But I mean,
he's gonna be like, I'm representing Brock.
I mean, Brock Lesnar. Like ain't nobody had a bigger impact than Brock Lesnar. So you got a BJ Penn effect with.
That's a BJ Penn. Yeah, Brock is a BJ Penn type.
Yo, this motherfucker was juiced out the gills. They said, "Fuck you, Mark Hunt. We'll pay your bill." It's true though. It's true. Yeah, we'll think about it. We'll get it going though.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out later on. We'll figure it out.
I would say that Kane and JDS had the best heavyweight fights that I've seen in the UFC.
Yeah,
and JDS
I think their trilogy was probably the best heavyweight trilogy that I've seen in UFC.
It was.
I agree. But Paulie, close it out because I gotta get the hell out of here. I'm tired.
This game's popping.
We're pre-recording it. It's the third quarter of the game right now, so we gotta get off this shit to watch it.
All right, fellas. Yeah, did your thing. I think you guys both represented them both very well. And honestly, Craig made it a little tougher for me. I'm not gonna lie. And he came out with fire. He made a point. You put all the lines out there like, yo, my man's still going. You guys did great. But everybody, whoever listens to this, good luck judging this because it's a lot harder than what it is. Especially if you're a fighting fan, period. This is a tough one to judge now. So I appreciate Craig. I appreciate you coming on again, man.
I do also want to say before we do get out of here, I agree with you. Craig made it hard.
He made that shit hard, bro.
Craig made it hard here because a lot of the stuff he was saying, I was like, all right, how can I like pick it apart? With the Khabib one, it was easy. And one of the reasons why was because you're going against me. I'm probably going to be the most comfortable person on the camera. I got like 300 podcast episodes and live videos of me now. And I'm the host of the show. So it's like, yo, I don't want to embarrass the host. But like, that's what makes it fun with Craig. It's like, you come on here, we can shit talk, and then we're going to talk shit after anyway. Like, we're not going to agree on it no matter what. And it was fun, man. So for any of you that want to come on here and do a debate, it's like this, guys. It's like we're literally sitting at the UFC Octagon. You see it behind us if you're watching the video. I'm Joe Rogan. He's John Anik, which he's my prodigy. So just so you guys know, we are sitting in front of the Octagon here doing a UFC fight. It's just table talk. That's what the Stoop Life is about. We are about fun, friendships, family, and just great arguments and sports talk. Like it's not, neither of us care who won. We just care that we finally got this on audio. So 20 years later, when Jose Aldo is still fighting, I can be like, he's still going, bro. Like, no, but yeah.
My boy's mayor, though. He was the mayor.
My man's just taking all the Barry Bonds juice. He's still fighting at 50. But yeah, fun, man. So, guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. We got a lot more coming from the Stoop Life, though. So tune the fuck in.
Hopefully, and shout out to all the sponsors.
Absolutely. Before you guys, get out of here, make sure you check out the streams of all of our sponsors. We're posting them on our page, on Instagram, at the Stoop Life, on the Facebook page. Check them out because without them guys, we wouldn't be doing this anymore because it's tired. It's hard to do this. We already had a couple people reach out to us that were like, yo, I'm going to do a podcast, this and that. And what happened? They do one episode. They're like, yo, this shit ain't easy. This ain't easy. So we want to give a big shout out to the sponsors for allowing us to, have an opportunity and a reason to do this.
And make sure you guys check out them sponsors frequently because I know our boy Louie does do a lot of card shows. He always has cards for sale. So make sure you stay in touch with them sponsors and keep looking at them very frequently.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We will be having gear coming out with the sponsors on them. So you'll be very familiar with them because actually this podcast is pre-recorded. So it's going to be coming out on Monday. So tomorrow's episode on Tuesday, we do have our first sponsor coming onto the podcast, Dan Testa, Patriotic Powerhouse. So tune into that. You guys are going to hear about him, his story, what he likes in sports, and what his company's about. So tune into that. Dan Testa, Patriotic Powerhouse. He'll be coming on the podcast.
And for those of you who do want to redeem Kobe Bryant after Paul fucked it up, check out Louis Sports Store and see if he has any Kobe Bryant card for sale. Paul,
I'm gonna get you, motherfucker. I'm gonna get you.
You gotta debate him now. He's just calling you.
I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna make Fedor look like a subpar fighter when I'm done with him.
Oh God, I love it. Gotta love it. That's what we're about. The Stoop Life, y'all. We just talk shit nonstop.
Man.
That's it. That's all we do.
Oh man.
All right, fellas. Let's get out of here. Let's watch some games.
Lastly, before we do get out of here, all of our episodes are not going to be this long. We got an hour and a half stream here of audio, but that's just because me and Craig are just, we talk shit to each other all fucking day, every day. If we don't, we're like, yo, you alive? I talk a little longer, but we have limits on the podcast we're doing, so this is just a longer one. I hope you guys are still listening, enjoyed it.
This is like a special case. It's all good.
Yeah, we're all sitting here like, all right, they keep talking, to shut up. And then we add on to it. It's like, all right. But we're going to shut up. I'm shutting the audio off. Peace the fuck out.